When you're staring at a mountain of telescope specs and wondering whether you're about to pour a solid chunk of your savings into something that will sit gathering dust, that hesitation is real. I get it. You've probably seen a couple of instant astrophotography ads, and you're trying to decide if the Celestron Origin is the shortcut you've been hoping for, or just another pricey gadget that promises the stars and delivers a dim flicker. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So let's unpack what this all-in-one observatory really brings to the table, and why that matters for everyday sky watchers versus the seasoned deep sky photographer. First off, the biggest selling point of the Origin is the way it tries to make setup almost invisible. Traditional telescopes demand a night of assembly, a mount that you have to balance, and a slew of alignment stars before you can even point at something interesting. The Origin bundles a 6-inch RASA, row-aligned Schwarzschild Axicon, optical tube with a motorized GoTo mount that talks to an app on your phone. The StarSense feature captures a short video of the sky, identifies where you are, and automatically aligns the instrument. In practical terms, that means you can pull the box out of its case, plug it in, run the app, and within 10 minutes you're ready to snap a picture of the Orion Nebula without ever having to fiddle with a handheld controller. For a family who wants a weekend project that ends with real images, that convenience factor is probably the biggest value proposition. Now, who should actually consider buying this? If you're a complete beginner, who has always wanted to try astrophotography, but got discouraged by the learning curve, the Origin hits a sweet spot. Its AI-powered imaging assistant walks you through exposure settings, focuses the camera, and even suggests post-processing steps. The app also lets you share the resulting images directly to social media, which is a nice little morale boost when your first shot of the Milky Way shows up clearer than you expected. Hobbyists who already have a decent DSLR and a manual mount might find the automation redundant, but for someone who doesn't own any other gear, the integrated camera system essentially gives you an out-of-the-box solution. On the flip side, if you're already an experienced deep sky shooter who knows how to tweak focal ratios, guide a telescope manually, and stack images with separate software, the Origin will probably feel limiting. The RASA design is great for wide-field imaging, but it caps the focal length at roughly 300 mm, which means you won't be getting the narrow-field detail you'd expect from a classic Newtonian, or SCT, for planetary work. Also, the internal camera sensor is decent for bright nebulae and star fields, but it isn't a full-frame DSLR. If you've built a workflow around raw files and custom calibration frames, you'll find the built-in processing a bit too canned. In short, seasoned astrophotographers looking for ultimate control should skip this and invest in a modular system. Talking about practical strengths, the first thing most users will notice is the sheer speed of aligning and tracking. The StarSense routine uses the phone's camera and an internal gyroscope to lock onto the celestial sphere, which eliminates the usual 3-star alignment you'd have to do on a traditional GoTo mount. In a field test I ran with a colleague who's not an astronomer, he was able to point the telescope at Saturn within 5 minutes of arriving at the site and got a clean, well-centered image on the first try. That immediacy also matters for city dwellers who can only get a few minutes of clear sky before clouds roll in. You're not wasting time setting up a tripod and fiddling with knobs. Another tangible benefit is the way the app manages exposure. The AI module constantly monitors the sky background, adjusts ISO and shutter speed, and even warns you if light pollution is getting too high for a clean shot. That kind of real-time guidance can save you from ending up with a washed-out image that would require heavy post-processing. For families who want to involve kids in the hobby, the visual feedback seeing the telescope learn the sky creates a more engaging experience than staring at an empty mount and hoping for the best. But there are some trade-offs hidden behind that polished interface. The RASA tube, while fast, is inherently short and requires a relatively bulky corrector plate to achieve sharp focus across the field. In practice, that means the optical tube has a wider diameter than a typical 6-inch Newtonian, and you'll need to be mindful of where you set it up. On a cramped balcony or a small backyard, maneuvering the whole unit can be a bit awkward. Also, because the system is alone, any failure in the electronics, say, a firmware glitch, or a dead battery in the mount renders the whole observatory unusable until you troubleshoot, or send it back. That contrasts with a modular setup, where a busted hand controller doesn't ruin the optics. Another consideration is the ongoing software dependence. The app is the control hub for everything: pointing, focusing, image capture, and even